Welcome to the show with no name. For Friday, March the 7th, 2014, I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch. Jim Nikosha's out cashing in his Confederate war bonds, so he may be a little late or not here at all. We don't know yet. So I've been doing some research on this whole Ukraine issue. Not what's going on there. It's whether we should use the article or not. And it's by no means a completely closed question. It is, as far as I'm concerned, because in 1993 they asked us to drop. That is, the government of Ukraine asked us to drop the because in their mind it brought back terrible recent memories of being the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine.
That's right.
But if you look at the history of the whole thing, it's been called the Ukraine in English at least since the 1700s.
Which has been in error since the 1700s.
No, not really.
Because you put the article in front of it, you denigrate it to a region as opposed to a country. It's not the Canada or England.
Yes, but the origin of the word is the borderlands. Okay, Ukraina means, or they think, borderlands, and it's like they never had an identity of their own. Their identity as a nation of Ukraine really is more of it didn't really start happening until like the 19th century, which is okay. You know, clearly they have their own language and customs, and that's cool. But they were always thought of as someone else's borderlands. The borderlands of Poland, the borderlands of the Ottoman Empire, the borderlands of Rus.
Yeah.
So the AP dropped the in December of 1991, but the nation itself didn't urge everyone else to drop it until 1993. So it reminds me of an Indian tribe in Northern California. My sister owned some land in their neighborhood at one time. And she told me the name of the tribe, which of course would be in Indian. She said that what it translated into was the enemy. So they had no name for themselves. They adopted the name of
the other people
but that the other peoples called them.
Many Native American tribal groups, in the essence of what their name means to themselves, is the people or the first people.
Right.
And the name that they often go by is, as you just said, something that somebody else has given them, just like the Sioux. The Sioux is from a French term, not a Dasoué, which means snake people. Okay, but obviously
the Nez Perce or pierced noses in French, right?
That's right. And that's what they were called by. So you're right. We often refer to groups or nations or countries by the name that we give them, not what they themselves call themselves.
So I'm happy to, from now on, I'll catch myself as many people are, and say Ukraine because that's what they want to call themselves. Just as I say Roma, Milano, Italia, and Deutschland.
Okay, that works.
I suspect Scotland did not name itself.
There were the Scots, who called themselves Scotland. They were originally Picts prior to.
Well, they're separate people, the Picts, the Scots, and the Jutes.
Yep.
I assume the Jutes came from Jutland, right?
That's what the word is. You had Saxons and Celts and others in England who became something other. You had the Gaels from
from many places, many places, but certainly from Ireland. But the Scots in Scotland also came from Ireland because they were the same people, the same Celtic tribes. And what was Caesar said referred to those who in their language are called Celts, but in ours Gauls. When he referred to the Gauls, he was referring to the Celtic peoples that were probably originally from Galatia in Central Europe.
The Gauls were cut into 3 parts, weren't they?
All Gaul was divided into 3 parts, one of which was occupied by the Belgae, another the Aquitani, and those who in their language are called Celts, but in ours Gauls.
Very good, Sister Anna Roberta.
The things you never forget.
That's right. As opposed to the things that we never learned. Yep.
Omnes Gallias divisione in partes tres.
Or,
I don't know who divided it, but somebody did.
well, obviously, the history is written by the winners, so somebody that was a winner came up with that. But there was talk on TV the last day or so that the Crimea is going to have a referendum now
Yes.
to determine what they're going to do.
Well, all of which is in violation of all the international agreements, but
That's irrelevant,
it's irrelevant.
you know. So we'll have to see. But we've got some friends who are Ukrainian, and there's been a lot of going back and forth on their Facebook pages about the situation, and they're sore afraid what ultimately is going to end up happening. That they
Well,
they're really
if there is
concerned about
bloodshed over this is wow. You know, you'd think we were past that.
Yeah, guess not. Guess not.
You know, as we saw when Yugoslavia fell apart, you know, the line between civilization and chaos is pretty thin.
Yes, it is.
Back when you were a senior in high school and I was a freshman, in college. That was the year of the Troubles. It was the year that ended with Kent State and you know, all these massive anti-war protests and stuff like that. There were the flag room in one of the dorms at Albany State was which was like an assembly room, a common area for all the dorms, was firebombed. There were riots in the cafeteria where you know, barely more than teenage girls working the line were beat up because they wouldn't let somebody get free meals, you know. We actually had a 24-hour fire watch organized by the students during that time frame. And it was really this close before people started killing each other over political issues, political disagreements.
Yeah, there is.
There were people that were actually expecting that, or thinking that they were the vanguard of the revolution. The revolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is the way they always refer to it, as the revolution.
And there is, you said, it's a very fine line between barbarism and civility.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It doesn't take for but a larger number to go to one side, then things can quickly fall apart. Especially when you have an ideology that fosters that sort of chaotic.
Now, it isn't even ideology, is it? I don't even know what it is anymore. I mean, is anybody really...
Does anybody really know what time it is?
Do they really know what time it is? Yeah. But Yeah, I mean, it's not like somebody's about to impose Marxism, Leninism, Stalinism, well, maybe Stalinism in the bureaucratic sense, but certainly not as an ideology of world revolution. They're just, we're back to, give me my port, you know?
Yeah.
But the Russians already had the port. This is what,
they-
you know, this is a, they're just, it's more like peak, you know,
I'm doing-
P-I-Q-U-E, I guess.
Yeah, I'm doing it because I can do it, and I'm going to do it. And you know, they could, you know, because Crimea is that peninsula right in the middle of southern Ukraine. Ukraine still has the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea they have access to, but it's not a whole stretch. All of a sudden, all that disappears, and now you've got a tremendous hold over a country's opportunity for import and export by sea, let alone the control they are going to exercise with all the gas that.
Well, what do
come
they
through
even
there.
care anymore? I mean, what is it that the Ukraine has that the Russians want? Or are they just bullying because they can?
They're bullying because they can, and historically we've been there, and there's I think there's a sense in Putin that he wants to go back to the good old days. You know, he can. I mean, he sees people in the leaders in Europe and other places as not being able to. I'm going to do it. I can do it with you, folks, because you're not going to stop me from doing it. You know, when somebody's been raised under the old regime and the KGB ideology, you know, he sees himself as the next successor in the long line of totalitarian leaders of the
Russia.
Yeah, you know, and all that we consider to be Russia, either historically or presently. It's a tough battle. I mean, they've been showing many pictures of Obama and Putin in their recent meetings and stuff, and you can sense, and this isn't really money more in quarterback, but you can just see that he has got this aura around him that just shrinks Obama when Obama is in his presence. That he doesn't have any experience in world leadership. Obama, he has
nor does he seem to have any interest in it.
Has no diplomatic experience, and I think he's just, you know, little boy caught in, okay, what are we going to do now? You know, and I'm not sure if somebody else were president, what somebody else could do if this actually happened, but certainly I think this is being exacerbated because of.
You know,
of Obama.
And this has been obvious since he took office. And at the time, you know, early on in his first term, I thought there might possibly be an upside to this, and that is the complete vacuum created by the absence of the United States leading the West might make all these other nations wake up and say, well, wait a minute, we can't count on the United States anymore. Maybe we should figure these things out and step up to the plate. And that hasn't happened. Not really, because there are no Churchills. You know, this whole European Union is a conglomeration of bureaucrats with nobody really in charge.
Or in a position to become in charge.
Right.
It's the lesser of equals that they have there. There is, you know, they've got no long-term thought-out agenda. The one thing that Russia, Putin, and that ideology has that also exists in the Middle East for many of those countries and their leaders is that we've got time. Okay, we're going to do it. I mean, though people say Putin acts on impulse and doesn't have a long-range plan, his plan can play out forever.
Right, it's a 1,000-year plan.
It's a 1,000-year plan, absolutely. And you know, we're going to eventually grind you down, and we're going to end up ahead of you in this line. And it's the same thing that the mullahs and the leaders in some of the Muslim countries have, that we can wait this out.
Eventually the caliphate will take over.
That's right. And that's okay, because that's what's going to be down the field. We don't have that long-range
Yeah.
planning like that. We
Yeah.
don't have that long-range vision. Sometimes we don't have any vision.
You know,
but certainly it's
I
not long-range
think
vision.
I think that Tocqueville said something to the effect that one of the problems with democracies, this is in Democracy in America, is that we really can't fight a war more than about 4 years before it becomes politically unpalatable. And that was remarkably prescient, having been said long before we had our long-term wars. But even, Lincoln had the problem with the Civil War. People are just obviously tired of it, well, especially with those kind of casualties. But Truman knew that he couldn't carry on much longer after all the euphoria of the war in Europe being over. We got to knock Japan out and knock them out now. And if it means giving up Manchuria, we'll give up Manchuria. And if it means dropping the bomb, we'll drop the bomb. But this is it.
We don't have. We have a hard time with that distance of continuation.
And that's why the Korean War dragging out for 2 years after the stalemate was brutal. And Vietnam, of course, is prime example. And Lord knows what we're doing in Afghanistan, or what if there is a plan. I don't think there is a plan.
We'll just wait until the clock to run down, and we're going to get out next year.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, we'll kill a few boys every week for no purpose whatsoever.
And we saw what happened when the Russians went into Afghanistan, and despite what we thought, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to. It's a war of attrition, and we're going to survive it. And we'll go on. You guys are going to move on, and
our only interest there in the first place was to keep them from giving sanctuary to Osama bin Laden and his crew, who had declared war on the United States. Well, okay. So what's our plan now? I had this discussion with a military strategist, a good friend of mine, who was retired colonel in the Marines, 5 years ago. I said, what's our mission in Afghanistan? He says, we don't have one. We should get out of there. Japers. It's probably more than 5 years ago now that I think about it. When did we go? Geez, we went in there 13 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, 12 plus, yeah.
We're in our 13th year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some of these battles, you may win the battle, but the war sure isn't over. And that's going to go on, and they're going to have the endurance to see it through. And I think the same thing is true with the Russian ideology.
Clearing up something I had forgotten the other day was it was the War of Jenkins' Ear between Britain and Spain. I think in like 1742 or something like that. It was in the 1700s sometime. Anyway, yeah, the War of Jenkins' Ear. Somebody cut off Jenkins' ear, and the Spanish didn't apologize, and so Britain had to go to war over it. Forget how long it lasted. It wasn't long. I think there were about 7 casualties or something. But
a few more years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people literally have fought over the drop of a hat.
Well.
And there's no thought given to.
I didn't come here to be insulted.
Right. Therefore. We're going to see who kills more.
I forget what the real. That's from Duck Soup, of course. Oh, this means war. I forget. What was it? What was it you said that we were? Oh, I don't remember. You called me something. Was it Pipsqueak? No, that wasn't it.
Well, look at individually how years gone by people would duel over a sense of
the drop of a hat
or insult.
Somewhere in my research, I came across the regional rules for dueling in County Tipperary, Ireland, which is where my people came from. And it was incredibly detailed. I mean, it's like 4 pages of,
Proper etiquette.
proper etiquette regarding to fighting a duel, and their second, you give the opportunity to apologize or withdraw the accusation, and and the seconds take care of that, and you shake hands and you go away, or, it should have come to, should have come to actually shooting at each other. Here are the formal rules. It was all very gentlemanly. I forget how many. Andrew Jackson fought all kinds of duels.
One of pistol wasn't one of them was a sword duel, wasn't it?
I'm not sure, but I recall that one of the people he shot was it Thomas Hart Benton, the senator from Missouri. Well, later Jackson becomes president, and he's a U.S. senator from Missouri, and they're having political dealings in the White House, and Benton still got the bullet in his shoulder.
Yeah, some of those gentlemen that we elected president were rather rough and tumble individuals. We think that mudslinging and talking ill about somebody is something new, and years ago it was a lot tougher and dirtier than that. You literally buy elections. Davy Crockett bought more rum and whiskey on the frontier for the voters than his candidate did, and he won. The next time the other guy did a better job, and he won.
Was that what that was all about?
Yeah,
that's not the Disney version.
No, it's not. No.
The Disney version was that he opposed the Jackson's really completely unconstitutional and illegal Indian
removal,
Indian bill, relocation bill.
John Marshall okays it, let him enforce it. Yeah.
Jackson was a dangerous man. Very dangerous man. Very competent man. Obviously the leader type.
What? Don't disagree with him.
Wow. He was a strong Union man. Of course, that's because he was president at the time. But when John C. Calhoun was threatening to secede, to lead the movement for South Carolina to secede from the Union, Jackson says, "Fine, we'll hang him." And he would have, because he did.
There's no disagreement.
He did something similar in Florida, if you'll recall, with the British ambassador or some kind of delegation or something that he treated as spies and hung them on the spot when he was a general. And it was a real close question as to whether Jackson himself should be court-martialed and hung for the incident. And the Secretary of State under the Monroe administration came staunchly to Jackson's defense and wrote a spirited reply to the British as to why Jackson had acted properly under the circumstances. And that was John Quincy Adams. Now you'd think that after John Quincy Adams had saved the guy's life, essentially, because Monroe would have been well within his rights to court-martial him and hang him. And then, of course, the next election, Jackson runs against Adams and then accuses him of everything, the underhanded deal to make Henry Clay Secretary of State. And
it was. Our democratic process isn't quite as clean and straightforward as we sometimes pretend it was and it is. Stuff in the ballot box is nothing new. It's not something the Russians invented. It's something that that we've done for a long time. And I would venture to guess that it wasn't too much after the second election of Washington that sort of thing started really creeping in.
Oh, it really started in Washington's first term, I think. Jefferson, within the cabinet, was secretly setting up the party system,
Right.
and denying it. Also, a man of great talents with very mixed.
Well, many people are that. They are one thing, but they're also something else
Yeah.
simultaneously, and
Yeah.
so sometimes it's complete opposite of what
You know,
they're perceived to be. You know, it's part of human nature.
it probably is. Probably the two most honest guys who ever held the office of president were the two Adamses. And they couldn't get anything done while they were president. You know, they were the
Yeah.
most competent individuals. You know, you would put them in charge of anything.
But they were loathed by.
But when it came to getting working with Congress and getting programs passed, no, they were both dead in the water from the day they took office.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much, I guess, our government does get accomplished, considering how partisan the people they have to work with are. But that's human nature. That's human nature, and Russia is no different. They're no better. They've got the same thing, but they've got a different ideological sense than we do about those things.
Now, getting back to what this is all about, they really have everything they need out of the Ukraine, but they're really annoyed that their stooge, who had been
Who sold his soul to Russia?
who had been the president of Ukraine, got overthrown. And then, then what remains is, does Ukraine join the European Union, or do they join the, for want of a better term, the Soviet system?
Yeah.
Is it still called the Commonwealth of Independent States, or is it called something else now? Whatever it is.
Russian Federation. My wife and I had.
Well, it's more than that. It's more than that, though.
That's what they are. They were what you just mentioned. That was part of the transitional thing. But they've got. I think they've got 21 semi-autonomous regions of the of the country, or their group, or their organization.
Okay, so the purpose of this is what? Power or trade?
Power over trade.
Well, okay, Ukraine is going to get their gas from Russia no matter what. In other words, they have to get their gas from not that they will cross the border and open the pipeline. I'm just saying that they've really only got one source, and so they, the market is there. And this is an era of free trade, for God's sakes. How much difference is it going to make if Ukraine joins the European Union, or if they join the Russian Union, or if they join neither? Is it worth shedding one drop of blood over? And yet, we got to show who's boss.
No, I don't think Putin's really concerned about if there's any blood spilt or not.
Well,
they're
okay.
They're still servants of the country, of Russia, and being a servant has no intrinsic value other than being an opportunity to be cannon fodder. There's a real, having spent a lot of time there and in Ukraine, there truly is a darkness on the souls of the people there. There's a real, you could see the people there, that the weight of the world was on their shoulders because of where they live. There's a different feel. I could drop you down in 10 different countries, and you would immediately know that you were dropped in Russia when you were dropped in Russia. There's just a sense. It's, there's some wonderful, great people there, but there's a darkness that has been instilled over hundreds of years of being part of something but being part of nothing. You know, they're just a cog in the wheel, and the value placed upon.
That's what happens when you're the borderlands.
When you're the value of what you are is only by what you produce, which certainly was true under Stalin and the boys. You know, your value is just what you produced. There's a joke in Russia that goes something like, you know, you get paid for what you do and you get paid for nothing, and because that's what, you know, everybody in the country got paid the same thing, unless you were a doctor, lawyer, or teacher, then you got paid less. And they, you know, it didn't matter what you did, you still got paid nothing. So productivity was not was not an important factor. You know, under Lenin in the early years in the 20s, they added a work-free day. You worked for free on Saturdays. And you know, you had one day that you didn't work for the state, but you got paid nothing extra by working that extra day. So it's a work-free day, and that's why productivity historically was so low in the country.
There's no reward for it.
There's no reward for it, other than you got to sweat more and bleed more. That was your reward. There's no individual incentive to do things well. Were there people who did well? Absolutely. Were there people who made great strides in the sciences? Absolutely. But for the other 99%, you got nothing for what you did. Everybody had the same thing, which was nothing. That is the reason around people who lived in individual homes had big fences, steel fences you couldn't see through around their home because they didn't want anybody to know what they had. They may have been able to finagle through the black market something else, and they didn't want that. You know, you go into an apartment building. They were the skeeviest looking apartment buildings, but inside the apartments were beautiful. But nobody got to see them because you didn't want your neighbors to know what you had. I mean, everyone was impeccably taken care of. Everyone who had something had exactly the same thing. Everybody had the same cabinet, because there's only one place to buy the cabinet, which is at the Russian cabinet factory. So if you're able to get one, it looked just like the neighbors. But they were beautiful. I mean, everything was well kept. Here, on the flip side, you go to these magnificent apartment buildings, you go inside somebody's home, they're crap. The people don't have that incentive to have something well taken care of. You know, the projects, you know, you go inside, they're awful. But inside the Russian apartments were immaculate and beautiful, and you could feel something a little different there than you did in the rest of the country. But out and about, the people had that, not necessarily sense of dread, but sense of heaviness. It really was. It extended from there, from walking on the sidewalks to riding on a trolley bus. It was just a heaviness that the people exhibited, which is one reason they always tended to gravitate to foreigners, because you have a different aura about you. You have a sense of hope. You know, the Russians called next year the sunshine future, but the sunshine future never got here.
So it's always mañana.
It's always tomorrow. It's always tomorrow. So I mean that philosophy plays into everything that the leaders of Russia do and have done. It's still based upon that worldview, which is not ours. And then you go someplace like China, and you've got a completely different one, though the long range of what they're striving for. You know, every culture is different.
I was reading a story one time, this is quite a few years ago, but since the fall of the Soviet Union, but around that time, about the black market. And one of the valuable items on the black market was light bulbs, because people couldn't get light bulbs, so there was a black market for them. Now, what people would do is they would steal the light bulbs from their workplace by unscrewing the light bulb and substituting a burned out light bulb. All right, so then the workplace had to replace the light bulb. And the kicker of the story was there developed a black market for burned out light bulbs. So people would buy the burned out light bulb so they could bring them in and take the other one and sell the good one on the black market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You could buy burned out light bulbs for the purpose of stealing from your employer.
Oh, that's.
Everything has value.
Yeah, yes,
you just
that's
got to
right.
let the market adjust for these things. Now, you were talking about not wanting their neighbors to know what they had, and of course, this is inherent in Marxism, where everybody's supposed to be equal.
Yeah.
I may have told you this story. I'm sure I probably have. We've been doing these shows long enough, but
Tell me again.
My brother Tim's wife is Chinese, and she was born in Taiwan, and both her parents came from mainland China. And her father, Rose's father, was one of the first expatriates allowed back in the country after Nixon opened up China. Okay? And he goes over there. Mao was still alive, and everybody was still wearing their Mao clothes and all this stuff. And so they go over there and get to see their relatives for the first time in 40 years or whatever it was, or 30 some years. And so he toured the country and visited all these relatives. And among other things that he had with him was his briefcase. He was an engineer for General Electric, and he had like a standard American black briefcase. Nothing unique about it whatsoever. So they come back with these hundreds of slides of their trip to China. And every time there's a picture of a relative, they're posing with the briefcase, beaming. And Charlie was, so amused by the whole thing, I guess, that he offered to, give one of his brother or somebody the briefcase when they left. We can't do that. We can't do that. We not even the highest commissar in our district has a briefcase like this, and we would be severely criticized for owning such a thing, and we'd be sent to re-education camp and stuff. And they were dead serious. I mean, because this was right after the Cultural Revolution. I mean, this is the terror that people were living under, that they couldn't own a briefcase or were delighted to pose with one, but they to own something so beautiful. When they left China, aside from the briefcase, they walked out of China with slippers on their feet and nothing else. They left everything they owned behind for the relatives, and they probably hid it all away. But yeah, that's it. When when everybody's when the whole ideology of the country is you got to be jealous of your neighbor. Instead of wanting to improve yourself, you want everybody else to be as poor as you are.
It's just like an animal farm. All pigs are created equal, except those who are more equal.
Yeah, some are more equal than others.
Yeah, we I was there, and again, when you were talking about, everybody has the same thing, which is nothing. The guy was able to save up his rubles and was going down. He wanted to finally buy his first Lada, which is one of the Russian cars. So he goes down to the dealership there, and he says, I have enough money. I want to buy my car. And the guy said, well, it's going to take a while. You have to put an order in for it. So, okay. He says, yeah, on March 7th, 6 years from now, which would be the 2020, you can come down and get your car. He says, on March 7th, 2020, I can come down and get my car. And the dealer says, yeah, that's correct. Your car will be here then. And the guy says, do I come down in the morning or in the afternoon? And the guy says, well, you have to be in the morning because this is when you're ordering it right now. And the guy's trying to buy the car says, I don't think I can do that. He says, you can't? Why? He says, that's the same day the plumber's coming to fix my toilet. You know?
There used to be great Eastern European jokes.
Yeah. They're anecdotes, they're not jokes, they're anecdotes.
Khrushchev is coming to your class, the Hungarian teacher tells the students, and he's going to ask you some questions. He says, he's going to say, who is your mother? And you say, my mother is Russia. Who is your father? My father is Nikita Khrushchev. What do you want to be when you grow up? A Soviet astronaut. All right? This is a 1960s joke,
Yeah.
obviously. So they all get this. Khrushchev comes, and so he says, you. He says, who is your mother? My mother is Russia. Who is your father? My father is Nikita Khrushchev. He says, and what do you want to be when you grow up? An orphan.
Very good. Last week, on, I don't know, one of the channels, they had the movie Enemy at the Gate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Vasily Zaitsev, the sniper at Stalingrad.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed how the Russians persecuted the war in Stalingrad with, literally every other, one guy had a gun, one guy had the bullets, and the guy had the gun, got shot, you got to pick up the gun and use your bullets in there. That whole patriotic, that love of country that was so important for them, is certainly shown in that movie. Or the stupidity of how what people do when they've been fed this propaganda, this sense of patriotism that was done under Stalin and the boys. The one thing I used to show in my history class is that picture of Stalin and the 11 generals. And every year when that picture came out, there was one less general in it. It had been photoshopped back then, and they were gone. In the end, it was like Stalin with two guys.
Yeah.
It was the last version of the picture that was there.
How did Zhukov survive? He died an old man. Right?
Yeah.
He died in his 90s, I think. Oh.
He was just far enough down that shit list that Stalin kept keeping that.
Well, it's hard to believe because he was, a guy who was the hero of the Soviet Union like he was you would think would be the most dangerous man. You'd think he would have been the first one to go when the war ended.
But he let him stick around. And that was one of the big things that hurt the Russian army beginning of the war. It happened right after Stalin had purged the army of its top leadership. And you had guys that weren't too long ago were first sergeants, all of a sudden are now officers because there was nobody left. But it'll be interesting to see what transpires in the next week over there.
Well, I don't know if you're caught up with all the news. The Russians sank one of their ships in the mouth of the Ukrainian harbor,
Right.
So that to block their ships in.
Right.
Man, what are you going to do about it? Well,
Yeah, all right. So you just keep exponentially doing more and more, and at what point does somebody actually stand up and say, stop? And at that point, does everything stop and ends at that point, or they're going to take it back to where it was when the whole thing began?
I think I told you I've been reading about the roots of the Pacific War, and long forgotten now is the border wars between Japan and Russia in the 30s, because the Japanese had their little empire in Manchuria, which they called very similar to the Crimea, an independent autonomous region, and they installed the last emperor of China as the figurehead, the puppet. Yeah. And at one point, a couple of points, they went after the Russians, trying to, because the Russians had their own interests in Manchuria, and Chiang Kai-shek, meanwhile, was coming up from the other direction and trying to assert his control. Zhukov was the Far Eastern Russian general at the time in the 30s, and he beat the crap out of the Japanese. The Japanese started the skirmish, and they got trounced by Zhukov. And all of a sudden, let's settle this issue. But the who's siding with who over there was a real mess, because the British had a long-term alliance with the Japanese, or at least an understanding with the Japanese to keep the Russians at bay. The Soviets were initially pouring money into Chiang Kai-shek and encouraging him to keep the Japanese tied up so they wouldn't go after Vladivostok, which was a real possibility at that time.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
You know, so by 1937, you got everybody, you know, and the Americans are just kind of caught. I don't know who the hell.
Who to support?
Yeah, you know, we support the British, and but we're not going to. They would not send American ships to guard Singapore because they didn't think the American public would go for the United States defending the colonies of Britain and Holland, or the Netherlands. There's another one. Netherlands is like, you know, that's somebody else's term, right? That's like the Germans saying, they're way over there. They're the Netherlands. Right?
Holy country.
But then the Hitler-Stalin pact comes along, and wait a minute, are the Japanese with the Germans, or the Japanese, you know, we're against the Russians, but the Germans are now allied with the Russians. It was really confusing. And where does Chiang Kai-shek come in, and now Mao Zedong's getting all the money? And
see how far away though that is from everything else that was going on in Europe. I mean, because Russia is just a ridiculously huge.
Was it 9 time zones or 12 time zones?
It was. Yeah, I think it was when it was the former Soviet Union. I think there was 11 time zones, and I think it's 10 now. They lost a little bit there. I mean, well, some of the European countries here, but it's huge. You know, you get on the train there, and you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah,
you're still where you started.
One of the things I learned about Ukraine was that how empty it was at one time. You know, one of the reasons they call it the borderlands is because there weren't that many people there, and the ones who were there, they really didn't care much about, except, you know, keeping the barbarians down every once in a while. That you know, the natives kind of minded their own business. You never hear about the Ukrainians invading Poland or Turkey or anything else.
But when
they just got overrun periodically.
When it did get to be big, Stalin killed them all with a famine.
It was like 25 or 30% of the population.
About 30 million people.
And you know, the breadbasket of Europe, and they took every blade of grain and all the seeds, including all the grain, including all the seeds for the next year.
Yeah.
You know, holy moly! Who needs those people? And this was like in 32, 33.
Right.
And you know, where do you think Hitler got all his ideas for living room from? Right?
Yeah.
Stalin got away with it.
Oh.
I think, you know, one of the most chilling phrases of the 20th century is Hitler's "Who remembers the Armenians?" And you can use that phrase over and over, and it's not necessarily Armenians you're talking about, but you know who remember, what do they call it? The Ukrainian phrase for that famine, or the Ukrainian Holodomor or something like that.
Our buddy Hillary had a few comments the other day about Putin she was comparing his actions in Crimea to Hitler's action in the Sudetenland. We have to go in and protect our citizens there.
But this is the one who set the reset button?
Yeah, yeah. You know, protection from what?
Right.
Protection
Right.
from what?
Well, I've been reading some of the Russian press on this, and of course the propaganda is incredible coming out of there now. But they're making it look like, you know, the fascists have taken over the Ukraine, and the Russian people are, you know, the Russian-speaking people. We have to protect the Russian-speaking people. Really?
Well,
You have to protect them because of their language? You're protecting them from what? You're protecting them from these fascist dictators. And of course now the American press is starting to go, well, you know, somebody raised the Confederate flag over Kiev or something. So it proves they're all racist. And,
you know, I was, when I taught there in 94, 95, it wasn't too long after Ukrainian independence that I was there. And where Chernihiv was, where I was teaching, is in that Russian-speaking region of Ukraine. They're all Ukrainian. They spoke Russian. You know, most of the people spoke Russian and Ukrainian, but everybody spoke Russian. That was the one thing Russia did during all those years of control of everybody. No matter where you were, if you were under part of the Soviet Union, you spoke Russian. You know, these Germans spoke Russision. You know, the Slavs spoke Russian, and that was it. They really tried to Russify everybody. But where I was, you know, a lot of Russians were in that part of Ukraine, but there was no sense of antagonism between the nationalities contemporarily or historically. They just were that.
And you know, we can't really understand that in this country. We don't have these thousands of years of experience. What we have is everybody came over here from everywhere else, and we get along.
In the last 300 years, 400 years. I mean, there it goes back thousands and thousands of years, and you know. So I guess you've had more.
Yes, but don't you know? Don't you know what they did in?
In 1224.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's different, and that's what makes us different, and it makes it hard for us to understand what they're talking about when you're talking about those things. So we don't have that frame of reference because our reference doesn't go back that far.
Just, to me, it's astounding how many separate and distinct cultures and languages there are in Europe. It isn't that big a place.
No, I mean, it's not
You know?
as big as the United States.
No, nowhere near as big as the United States, really. We flew out of Milan when we were coming home and changed planes in Dusseldorf. It was like going from Albany to Philadelphia. The plane goes up, you have your Coke, and the plane goes down. You know, we were at cruising altitude for about 10 minutes.
That's right.
Right?
And by that time, for very long.
By that time, we had crossed northern Italy, Switzerland, and most of Germany. You know?
And because of that, you can, when you really think about that, you can see how artificial these boundaries are that have been created there, because within that boundary of
all the former principalities and duchies, and
you've got a number of ethnic groups. You've got a number of principalities, a whole lot of little groups that have been thrown together and have been asked to create one out of many.
Right.
You know, yet
the Bavarians and the Prussians have nothing in common with each other, not to mention the Sudetens.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know,
or the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You know, as vast as the Austro-Hungarian Empire was there a universal language across the? No, there was a different language across the street. Yeah.
And they had no desire to
do
anything with a guy across the street. So I mean, Europe is, you know, it exists. Well, Europe exists as it does today for what, 60 years?
As it is today from about the 1970s, when you get right down to it.
Yeah, all right, because you have other changes as it does since the 1990s.
Yeah, from the 90s.
Okay, and then the scope of time, it's a speck.
Yeah.
You know, it's a speck.
No, I mean, there are people alive. I've got relatives who are alive today who have who were born when Poland did not exist, for example. That was part of Prussia, part of Russia, part of Austria-Hungary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone, you know, survived everything that Marshal Pilsudski and the Belarus and all this stuff back and forth. And this border moved here.
Yeah.
This chunk of Finland goes there.
Yeah. You know, there's a feeling of national pride, but within that, there's these little subdivisions that maybe really don't subscribe to that.
You know, there's the Polish sections of Ukraine. There's the Ukraine sections of Poland.
And you're right about that, because there's definitely a different worldview in Western Ukraine and Eastern Ukraine, simply because that's the way it is. You've had that flux border on the eastern end that's gone back and forth.
There's the same thing in Montgomery County. You know, people in St. Johnsville go shop in Utica. They don't go to Albany. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they go to the hospital. They go to Little Falls. They go
That's
to
right. St. Johnsville is in
Montgomery County.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you go a mile outside of St. Johnsville. You're in a different judicial district. You're a different judicial department. You're in a different area code. Yeah.
Well, look, where you live here is in what ward?
What ward?
Yeah.
The third ward.
You're in the third ward.
Today.
Okay. All right. So that's one entity you are. You're also under a
the board of legislature, county legislature district, which includes, you know, a couple of districts in the third ward,
which is part of Montgomery County,
right?
Which is part of New York State, perhaps.
Yeah, and different judicial districts and judicial departments, and federal court districts.
So you've probably got 10 entities that you are a part of, right where you are now.
Absolutely.
And your affinity towards these other subdivisions or parts are
some of it you never think of.
No.
You know?
No.
I mean, do I identify with area code 518? You know.
Well, it depends if you got a landline or a cell phone.
Well, we got the Magic Jack hooked up yesterday, but because we didn't cancel it with Time Warner yet, I'm not getting incoming calls, or they're hit and miss. And the phone isn't ringing, which is great. You know, it's not interrupting us, but it's very confusing. So we got to call them later to straighten out.
Now, do you have the same phone number as you had when you were
yeah. I transferred the phone number to the Magic Jack. Magic Jack is ridiculously cheap. You know, I mean, it's like, you know,
can you make
$7 a month? Yeah, you can call anywhere, any place, anytime. Call forwarding, call waiting, everything, and it's exactly the service is exactly the same as I got from Time Warner over the internet. You know, it's the same technology.
Which is the same service you had when you were
it's remarkable. You know, the box is the Magic Jack is this big, and it used to be you had to hook it up to your computer, but now you just hook it up to the directly to the internet. And you don't even need a computer to operate it. So, incredible.
Modern technology.
Absolutely incredible. The instructions could be a little clearer, some of the finer things, but nothing. It costs, you know.
When Marina first came here, when we got married, she'd call maybe every 3 weeks, once a month, to her mom. And wow, it was like $7 a minute.
Yeah.
To call.
Yeah.
Okay, honey, my paycheck.
Right.
All right.
Right.
No, it's 3 cents a minute.
Yeah, right.
Right?
And
We don't have to go through an operator. We used to have to go through an operator.
now you can, with the Magic Jack, you can buy international minutes, and again, they're like that. They're absolutely ridiculously next to nothing if you want it. The other thing is, if you send a Magic Jack from here to your mother-in-law, and she has a computer, it's nothing. A Magic Jack to Magic Jack anywhere in the world is free. Yeah.
Serious.
And if you bring your Magic Jack overseas, you can get all your home phone calls directly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Serious.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. But that's how the technology has advanced. I'm reading 3D printing is a big. Now, I never heard of 3D printing until Louisa was like a freshman in college or a sophomore in college, and she was in the engineering program, so they had a 3D printer that they work with. I said, wow, yeah. She said, we got one of those, and she was explaining, and I think she made something for me on it, or at least, yeah, I think she did. Can't remember what it was, but some trinket or other. Now they have home 3D printing machines for like $1,000. It's the price of what laser printers were when they came out, or even cheaper. And today I was reading that one of the problems, the most expensive part of these 3D printers, if you're using plastic, is that it costs like $50 a pound or whatever it is for the plastic material. Yeah. I don't know if it's a pound, whatever it is. So some guys invented a machine that he's selling for like $300 that converts milk bottles into plastic that can be used in these 3D printers, and all you do is you cut it up into pieces, run it through
like a shredder or something?
A paper shredder, a home shredder. Run it through there, and then you put it in this $300 machine, and it comes up for like 10 cents a pound as opposed to $50. And this is the guy working in his garage comes up with this idea, and it's not exactly as perfect as the $50 kind, but for home purposes, etc. When you get from $50 to 10 cents,
you're talking some serious money.
You're talking some serious money. Yeah. Now you get. What I said, I keep talking about how much memory costs because I have this $1,000 a megabyte figure from when I first started practicing law. It was $1,000 a megabyte for a hard drive. You can get a 5 megabyte hard drive for $1,000. And now, when I saw it, a 3 terabyte hard drive for $99 I saw the other day. Terabyte.
I have no idea how this technology works, but
and it just gets, it's smaller and smaller and bigger.
More advanced and can do more things.
What? Smartphones didn't exist 5 years ago, did they?
5 years ago, we didn't even have smart people.
We didn't have smart people. It must have been somebody because they were working on smartphones.
Last night, on Thursdays, I work at a different house, and the one guy I work with on Thursday nights, he's got all these old movies, old science fiction movies. So last night, he was doing this exercise, and we watched War of the Worlds with Gene Barry.
The old one.
Yeah, 1953, And
Bat Masterson,
that's right. And they had they sent this plane up for high altitude photographing of the machines that had invaded us, and it was a flying wing. It was a stealth bomber that wasn't stealth. And I'm thinking, the Russians had watched this; they would have known what our technology was. I mean, that was you know,
Wow.
the cutting edge, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, and the people in the United States, you know, never thought about that, because a lot of the things that they say were UFOs or all this advanced technology that
Right.
that the military was trying out, and that the government felt it was better for everybody in the world to think there was UFOs, as opposed to the government has these capabilities with their own things. But it's funny, and the technology, you know, you have, you know, like great big Geiger counters and stuff now. I mean, you can have a Geiger counter fit in the palm of your hand. I don't. Can you imagine all the stuff that you and I are being hit with right now, floating through the air?
Oh, right, right.
You know, all the waves from
Yeah.
cell phones and videos.
Wi-Fi.
And you know, that's got to be doing something to us. To us. To us. To us.
Maybe.
Yes,
Maybe.
It's just, it's amazing, you know, and how something you got in your pocket picks out the right thing. So let you find out who's calling you, who's talking to you. I don't get it. I don't understand, you know.
And you know, it's just happening faster and faster. In fact, these Google glasses, the apps that they're. By the way, you have the Magic Jack. You can get a Magic Jack app, so that you know, if you've got your iPad with you, the phone will ring on the iPad. So you don't even have to carry a cell phone with you. Your home phone will ring on your iPad. let alone the forwarding capabilities.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I mean, you put your finger on something and you move it and it does something. I don't.
Somebody just sent me, I think it was Gary Glugas, this app that I don't know if it was a British museum, something in London History Museum or something. Has this London app where they've got built in all these historical photographs of London, and as you're walking down the street, you press this app, and the historical picture is knows where you are from the GPS, and the historical figure is superimposed in front of you, so you can see, you know, what it was like what the street was like during the Blitz or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Who went around and took all these pictures?
Well. Well, the pictures, of course, were historical, but what they did was they GPSed them. You know, they went around and found where the picture was. Well, I think Google Earth doesn't Google Earth take your photographs if you've got a GPS set on your photograph, and you go to Google Earth and it'll show you everybody else's photograph of the spot. You know? Wow.
It's going too fast for me.
Anyway, the Google glasses can tell you that they now have facial recognition, and if it recognizes somebody at a party, it'll tell you all about them, how old they are, where they went to school, and what their Facebook things are, you know,
and
who their pseudonyms are on Facebook.
2007, we had Dr. Bill Daggett come to. He's from Perth. And he came to the school to do a talk to the teachers for the opening day of school. And he's a big tech guy. And he was telling us...
Is this the guy who invented email?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because there was a guy from Perth or Vales Mills or something who invented email.
No, this guy was in education, but he talked about technology education. And he says, within the next 5 years... you're going to be able to put a pair of glasses on and walk down the street in France, and it's going to translate that name of that sign so you know where you are.
Oh, sure.
English.
Yeah.
And we had some teachers saying,
"Get out of here."
Wow.
That's so primitive?
Yeah, it is. It is. He says, you'll be able to put the glasses on and pick up a book in Chinese, and it'll translate it for you. And people are saying, yeah, it's nuts. Well, it wasn't 5 years after that they really had these things, you know. And he says, yeah, and he says, and you can't imagine. Of course, a lot of our teachers couldn't imagine that. The stuff they got in development that's going to be beyond that. He says, technology it used to be technology doubled every 7.5 years.
And that's like
Now-
every
now-
7 seconds.
Well, he said right now in 2007 it's like 18 months, and he says within a couple of years it's going to be every week. You know, and I forget the number he gave us, but he said that 95% of everything that's ever been invented has been invented in the last 5 years. But you see all this stuff, you know, yeah, I mean, there's, you know, advancement and inventions had gone so stilted. You know, you had a steam engine, and then you got the spinning jenny, and then you
Right.
got the steam engine for the train, and this and that, and the internal combustion engine, and how it progressed. Now it's boom. Like you said, you have an app on here, and an app can do more than the computers did a few years ago.
No, absolutely.
I don't.
And these iPads like cost nothing when you think about it. When you think of what they do.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Ah.
yeah. They were saying on the radio yesterday that they think there's going to be a new iPhone coming out pretty soon, because all these big stores are discounting the current editions of them. So it looks like they're trying to get rid of them because something new is going to be coming out. You know.
And everybody will be lined up to get the next one.
Hey, my cell phone's got a rotary dial on it. I don't know. This is just way beyond.
Did you see that thing I posted the other day of the kids with the rotary phone?
Yeah, yeah.
And they were smart kids. You know, that was really great. You know, they got all these smart kids, and they put a rotary phone in front of them, and first start out by asking them if they know what it is, and then, do you know how it works? And then my favorite question was, how do you text with it? and you know, and these are, as I said, they're smart kids, and they're trying to figure out. Well, they said, let's see if you want to do A, you just you know, do the two once, or one, I forget, whatever one, I guess, is A, or and if you want to do B, then you have to do that number twice quickly. You know,
But it only goes like a.
right. And there's what? Really?
I have to confess, I've never texted.
You've never texted at all?
Never.
Oh.
No. I've never texted.
Well, until fairly recently, if you were texting, you had to sort of do it that way, only digitally. You had to hit it twice for B, and
Now we got them all there, I guess, because Misha's got one.
full keyboards, and they're making the keyboards bigger and bigger. And,
Yeah. You know, I was always.
or you open it up and the keyboard spreads out.
Or the one where you open up and the keyboard gets superimposed on the desk.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah. Pretty soon you're going to have one superimposed, and right now you just think about it.
I don't think we're far from that. We're not far. No, we're not too far from that. And you were talking about the, translating the signs. For several years you've had. You walk down the street, it knows where you are, and it tells you what the specials are in that restaurant across the street.
I heard about that.
They were advertising the thing on TV several years ago, where you go to the foreign country and you say, "Is this where my grandmother lived?" and it translates it into Italian for you. You know? Immediately.
Just look at all the things we've talked about, and you can understand why it's hard for schools today to educate the kids to actually have the knowledge that we have, because it's so easy to access knowledge that they don't have to know. I need to know I can just do this, and it's right there, I can read it.
Well, let me tell you. You know, I went to law school for 3 years. You know what they taught us the first week?
No.
The first week they taught us that being a lawyer doesn't mean you know what all the law is. All you need to know is where to find it. And you have to identify what the issues are,
right,
and you need to know where to find the answers, and that's all. You know, you're not expected to know what the answers are. You're just expected to know where to find the answers. But you know, that's what the 3 years of law school is about.
Where to find all the answers.
But it's not important that the kids know everything, but they need to know where
find it.
where to find it. And of course, you do need the basic roots, like how to turn on the computer.
You know, and then the bell finds something and determine the validity of what you find, because like
Right.
we always talk about Wikipedia, that's what people have said it is, but there's no vetting of information out there. You know, just as a newspaper, you can read it and you feel pretty confident that's correct because that's been vetted. Hopefully, the reporter has vetted the information before they publish it. They've gotten it from more than one source. They've got a confirmation on it. But stuff on the internet, no, you can put anything you want.
But yeah, I gotta say, I'm impressed with Wikipedia, and I think one of the things that makes it work is that it's constantly vetted. Everyone who reads an article who disagrees with it adds something to it, or puts in the contradiction, and or protests that this is incorrect, and points to source. And then the important thing, you know, that when sources are missing, they say, "Hey, there's no source for this statement." You know, that's the what an astonishing amount of information is in there.
Oh, yeah, you don't find many more Encyclopedia Britannica salesmen going door to door selling the books.
No,
you know, you just Google.
Yeah, and it's almost
it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes the information is there before it's even happened. That'll be the next step.
I mean, I remember, well, I won't mention his name, but one of the current Montgomery County level judges, or a judge in Montgomery County, came into my office when I was family court judge, and I was trying to demonstrate the internet to him, and he's saying, he says, "Well, you know, I hear that the internet's got a lot of stuff, but it's really hard to find it. So what good is it?" I said, "Give me a question, any question." I think Google had just come out at that point. And he says, "How many varieties of beans are there?" He said to me. Less than 1 second, I had the answer to his question. Yeah. Google was amazing. You know, before that, there were some other search engines that were quite good, Alta Vista and stuff like that. But Google, whatever their algorithm they use, it just
kills everything else.
And it's constantly searching, and you can.
You know, it's interesting now when you type up in the little corner there, you start to type in a word, it's starting giving you all these choices of things that, I don't have to finish it. I already know this is what I want to go to.
And in 5 years?
The only mistake I've found on computers is when you do spell check. You know what the mistake is? If you type up a word and you put a number in the middle of it, it doesn't come up as being misspelled.
Is that right?
Yeah. Because I was the principal at the high school. I type up stuff and I do the spell check and everything. I get to my secretary and she says, "You really want the number 7 in the middle of the word Jackson?" "Oh, sorry." All right, it doesn't. Try it sometime. Type up a word and put a number in the middle of it and see if it comes up to have to be spell checked.
Wow. And there's so many different spell checkers built into these different.
Oh yeah, and then you get 6 or 7 words. Yeah, but you know how bad a speller I am?
No.
I am such a bad speller. When I get a spell check, the list of choices is never there.
You're not even close.
I'm not even close. No, you can't figure it out. And usually they'll give you 5 or 6 different words. It's not even up there. You know, that one finger gets carried away. You know, and it just messes it up. Sister Aloysius. I told you what happened in that class, didn't I?
I'm not sure.
My senior year, I took typing, and
it's not called keyboarding, is it? For the benefit of the youngsters out there.
Typing.
What's typing? What's typing?
I took it, because I wanted to learn to type. So when I went to college, I do my papers, and we started out on an Underwood, you know, and I wasn't very good, but we started on Underwood, and about halfway through the semester, we got the Selectus, the electric typewriters. And we just got them, and she gave us one of those time tests. You got, a minute to type how many words. It is, you know, and I was,
ASDF space, semi-LKJ space.
and I was the first one to have to go up to sister and show her my work, and she looked at it. I knew how bad it was, and it was funny. And she looked at me and she says, "You think this is funny?" I said, "No, sister, I don't." And Sister Aloysius was so old.
This is Sister John Aloysius?
Yes.
She was like 95 at the time, I think.
And the more she was getting upset,
She taught
the
Sister
funnier-
Rose Margaret in high school.
Really? The madder she got, the funnier it got, and the harder I laughed. And she got so mad at me. The only time in my school career I ever got sent out in the hall, I got sent out in the hall my senior year with that paper. And I had probably about 75 mistakes a minute in there. And it was because all you had
You got sent in the hall?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And now you're on the school board?
I'm on the school board. That was it. You know, because all you done is
Really?
Yeah. All you had to do is touch those the keys and they went off. And we're using those the
Yeah.
Underwoods where you had a pound, and I got sent in the hall. Yep. And I after class, everybody left the class. I'm back in. So I said, "Sister, I'm sorry for laughing."
You know, when they closed St. Mary's High School, you know, when Scully opened, they got rid of a lot of it. They had a, you know, kind of like a garage sale. And I bought 3 mechanical typewriters. 2 of them were $10 a piece, and the other one I think I paid $30 for, or 20. I don't forget. But I used those all through college, and you know, one or another of those. I wonder whatever happened to them. Must have thrown them out when my mother died. But yeah, all I ever had was a mechanical typewriter. I never used an electric typewriter until I think till I was practicing law. And even then I couldn't really use it.
But the downside of that getting sent out in the hall and everything was the fact that I went to college, I couldn't type, and it cost me so much money to pay all these girls to type my papers.
Really?
Because back then, remember, we used to have that onion skin paper. You had to turn your paper, and they were no good for erasing because you
Right.
put a hole right in it, you
Right.
know. And then
Right.
you had to pay attention. You got going good. And if you don't pay attention, you got to the bottom of the page. You had no place to put your footnotes. You know, it was a real chore doing papers when I was in college, and now it's, you know, the ELA style of papers is so different. It's so user friendly.
You know, the practice of law as if nothing, you know, like everything else that, you know, can you, I remember, you know, working for Vince Vicinanzo when I was still in law school, and they had electric typewriters in his office, but there was certainly nothing that you recorded. The office, I had a very advanced office in Albany, and they had these magnetic cards and $5,000 typewriters with magnetic rectangular cards that if you type a letter on it, you can save it on the card. You know, $5,000 for these machines. They were great, but you could correct your mistakes, so it was incredible. But I remember, you know, Vince used to do these certiorari proceedings on tax things where you needed like 8 copies of it, and there would be like 8 carbons. And you make a mistake, and you had to go through each one and use either the whiteout or erasing,
or the back page slips, and all of a sudden now you're typing back page.
And if it was better, then you had to do the whole thing over.
Oh,
Now, and every one had to be done individually on top of that, you know. And now you just use the form, put in the different stuff, and you're done. You know, secretaries got nothing to do today, and they're still getting paid the same or more.
well, of course.
Yeah. But the just imagine what the productivity increase.
Oh,
You know.
yeah.
And you're paying less, far less now for a keyboard and a computer than you did for the IBM Selectrics when they came out, and you're getting just as good, and you obviously can do much more. You can make the type this big or this big, or you know.
Yeah, or put a script in it and make it look like fancy.
Well, the Selectrics were incredible. You could change the ball, put an italic one in there, and then take that out and put another one in there.
That fascinated me. That ball, you type it,
Yeah.
it's going around.
Right.
What the heck?
My sister-in-law had one of those at home. And those were like $700-800, something like that.
Wow.
900, I forgot.
Now you're going to type something up, you open up microwave office and you pick your font, you pick your print type on it, and you know, it's amazing. Technology.
Incredible.
It is.
So let's, we got a little time left. I want to talk about something that astonishes me locally. Diane Hatzenbuehler has been hinting that the mayor has a plan to tear down the clubhouse at the golf course and build a banquet house on the spot to accommodate 200 or 300 people for banquets. You know, this would be like, I don't know, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, whatever. Drew's planning to spend on this. And you know, I'm saying, you know, what's Diane smoking these days? The mayor basically said that on her post. Well, who wouldn't everyone want to have a nice banquet house where we could do this? Why can't we build that? And think, you know, there's a provision now in the Constitution, kind of late coming. I think it dates to the Ford administration. But there's a provision in the Constitution now that allows for, under certain circumstances, for the President of the United States to be removed because they're crazy. You know what I'm saying? You know, it has to be certified by a majority of the cabinet, the vice president, you know, and then you know, then the president is removed, the vice president takes over temporary until the physicians proclaim the president capable of serving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is just plain nuts. The city of Amsterdam is going to go into the banquet hall business, and we're going to start with a broke city, an empty fund balance, and we're going to borrow a couple $1 million to tear down the clubhouse and build a banquet hall. We don't need a golf course. All we need is a banquet hall, and then the city's going to run the restaurant?
Mrs. Mayor, tear down that clubhouse.
Oh, my God.
Holy.
You know, I'm sure that in certain circles, I know that in certain circles, the Common Council is going to be criticized for changing the Golf Commission ordinance and taking it over. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to be criticized for that. But you know what? Desperate times require desperate measures. And when you've got someone who's completely bonkers at the head of the city government, planning on doing things that are so crazy that if she were president, she'd be removed from office, then you got to do something. I'm just flabbergasted by the whole thing. Flabbergasted. That's her vision. I talked to...
You know, there's people who look through rose-colored glasses. I think hers are psychedelic.
Yeah. I talked to somebody the other day who is keeping up on these golf course issues, but is not himself a golfer. But he raised to me the possibility that the mayor's goal in all of this is not to, when I say all of this whole golf course milieu of who the pro is, who the caterer is, and all that stuff, is not to provide fiscal sanity to the golf course and more income for the city from the golf course. The goal is to shut down the golf course and sell the land. And I said, well, you know, what's your basis for that? And the basis is that before she was elected, one of her top advisors, and I won't mention the name, but you can guess who it is, was telling people that he thought that that should be the city's goal with respect to the golf course. Not just to sell it as a golf course, but to close it down and sell it as building lots.
Right, I remember there was discussions in...
And that knowledge certainly makes a lot of what's happened in the last year make sense. Because, look, everything that she has done with respect to the golf course has served to undermine the golf course as an institution. Made the cost higher, the membership lower, and the income less. And of course, then if you blame it on the people who want to keep it as a golf course, it makes it even easier. Well, how you going to, if you have a long-term lease, how are you going to tear the place down and build a new one, Right? Oh my God. And now you understand, the whole, the bridge to nowhere thing and the railroad station. And
will the bridge be linked to the housing up in the golf course?
I don't know. I suppose if you...
I mean, that would get
if you make an escalator from the Guy Park Manor to the golf
Heights?
course.
Yeah, that's an idea.
And would that be any more preposterous than what's already being planned?
No.
It wouldn't.
It fits right in.
Fits right in. It's right in. I'm in shock over all this stuff. In shock.
Well,
why wouldn't
if it's affecting you that much, I'd recommend you go down to the City Hall and walk through the maze.
If I only walk through the labyrinth.
Walk down there through that. You'll be able to center yourself. Your feelings of anxiety will disappear. You'll be focused. You'll be relaxed.
Did I mention in one of these programs? I don't think I did. Back after the labyrinth was built, all these. If you don't know what we're talking about, the mayor has built a labyrinth in the former GAR Park below City Hall, which is kind of one of these new agey things that brings out the druid in us.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you walk through it and it brings you peace, and it's all made out of little rocks, and of course it makes it impossible to mow the lawn down there, or nearly impossible.
Well, Shane does all right down there. I think he takes a weed whacker and goes through there.
Well, I'm told that, I'm not mentioning any names, but an employee of City Hall, in the course of trying to mow down there, knocked some of these rocks out of place and did not replace them. Not only was he disciplined, a memo of this discipline went into his permanent record, his permanent employment record, for destroying city property.
Bob.
I'm not kidding.
Bob.
As I say about the president and the what was it, the 27th Amendment? I forget.
Bob.
Yeah. You destroyed city property. Well, this is part of your permanent employment history.
I'm sure that'll prevent him from getting a management job at some point in his career. Oh.
Well, under the the employee contract, I think that this person is under. I'm not sure. I kind of forget which. But it may be that that's if you want to get rid of them, then you look at their history and say, have there been any prior incidents? And
Well, I'm sure that's the first instance of labyrinth destruction has been involved. So I mean, that doesn't really set. Well, I would set a precedent.
It would set a precedent. Yeah. And this was early on. This was I think probably the first time it was mowed after
it was created.
After it was put in with nobody's authorization but hers.
Well, I think with her creation, that, you know, she doesn't have any rocks in her head now. They're all out there.
They're all out there.
Yeah.
They're all out there.
Yeah.
Dedicate our rocks to different people.
They'll probably have to have a fundraiser. Everybody donate a rock.
Well, she did something like that. You know, you think you can satirize this stuff, Gavin? You can't. You can't. I mean,
Can't satirize fact, huh? Wow.
Man, oh man. And now she wants to build a recreation center at Veterans Field. I'm not sure what that's all about, but supposedly
Well,
we're going to raise a couple $1 million.
They're concerned about what's going to happen with Bacon in the school district.
Yeah.
And, no, not really, because nothing I've seen that the school board has looked to do with Bacon is going to take out the community function of the spaces that we currently use up there. So I don't see it as an issue. If we have to put offices up there and do some work, if we have to bring students up there to have money so we can do some work up there, they will, but I do not see anything. There's been no discussion that if we do that, the gymnasium and the surrounding area during times of year will not be available to the community. I have seen or heard nothing. That's never been one of the discussions. What do we have to do up there if we have to because of the problems at CAB? If we do something, if we have to move CAB from CAB and we have to go to Bacon, one of the things they're going to do is they're going to create some classrooms so we have state money to pay for it. Otherwise we don't because there's no kids there. And if they do that, the gymnasium that they're currently using for their basketball will still be there. The ball field
It's an after-school thing anyway.
It's an after-school thing. It's a vacation thing. It'll still be available for use. I don't see what the issue is. I don't, and the board has not discussed it. Say, well, we got to do this up there, Bacon. Nobody else can use it. Now one word of that has been brought. So I don't see that as an issue.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I don't know what the current situation is, but it used to be, not that many years ago, that, well, the school district has quite a number of gymnasiums. Every school has a gymnasium and such like that. And there were different programs, like there would be these ad hoc volleyball leagues and things like that. And if you paid $25 to give the janitor to keep the school open or whatever, you could use the gym Thursday night at 8 to 9 or whatever.
And the organization has to pay for the cost of the janitor if the janitor works beyond normal hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's still done.
Yeah.
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 And and that's open to any public organization, really.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So if they go up there, as long as they've got somebody there with them at night, I mean, if the janitor doesn't have to work and they're just using the gym, they got somebody to be responsible up there, they can be responsible.
So
up there.
let's suppose, as what's her name would say, Gertrude Stein. Suppose
Yes.
that the school district decides they need the whole Bacon building for whatever. Going to carve the gymnasium up into cubicles for school board members, whatever. It matters not. There are other school district facilities, theoretically, that could be made available to do whatever it is that the recreation department is using Bacon for at the moment. Right?
Yeah. The only caveat I would have with that is that there are many evenings those facilities are used for school purposes by those individual schools. The advantage was Bacon
wasn't being used for anything because it wasn't a school.
So Bacon, okay. Yeah. But yes, if Bacon were to disappear, could the school district work with these community organizations to make available one of the gymnasiums for those types of activities? Yeah. Would it be as perpetually open like Bacon is? Probably not, but it could be done. The other advantage of Bacon is they really feel that the community organizations up there have a home there. It's something because they've got a whole lot of things available, not only in the gymnasium, but outside on the school, the other areas of the school, the ball field.
Yeah. I'm just talking about under the worst circumstances.
could something be made available? Yeah, I'm sure they would.
And of course, we're talking about a program that wasn't even in existence 2 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's made tremendous strides, giving opportunities to kids in the school district of all ages
Yeah.
and all activities. And it's something the community has needed.
I have absolutely no problem with the recreation department providing recreation. None whatsoever. You know, at least you can look and say where there's something positive coming out of our tax dollars.
Yes.
Right? And doing it in cooperation with the school district for which we're also paying tax dollars, I got no problem with that. No problem whatsoever. No, maybe you can argue about how much, you know, what's it really costing, you know, the taxpayers for this, that, and the other thing. And frankly, I suspect the bacon program is costing relatively little to operate in the grand scheme of things. You know?
Yeah, virtually nothing it costs the school district. You know, because a lot of the programs are free to the participants, and some that have a cost, it's very, very nominal. You know, and it's been, for years, there's been a concern in the community that kids have nothing to do and no place to go. This has kind of changed that. They've got some place to go. The guys in charge of it, you know, you wouldn't know that there's high school kids and junior high kids up there doing things, because they have changed the mentality of the youth while they are participating in these programs drastically. It's too bad somebody doesn't carry over while they're in school during school day, but
Yeah.
that's something else. But it has. They've really turned that place into a center for the kids. And it's not a hangout.
Yeah.
You can't just go up there and hang out. You got to be actively engaged in the activities up there. And I've heard, I don't think I've heard a complaint from anybody that lives up there on the hill.
Well, when we were kids, the YMCA kind of served that purpose.
Yeah, because it was in the city as
yeah.
opposed to
Right.
not being in the city.
Right.
It did, you know. And kids also found a lot of opportunity for themselves to organize and do things. You know, when we were kids, there was no adult on the Four Diamonds, but you had
Right.
You had ball games from sun up to sundown,
Right.
and you had to get there. One of the things I told our teachers, and I still believe this, one of the problems of the way our youth conduct themselves and behave today is that they are not responsible for policing and organizing themselves. We went up and we played a ball game on Diamond 1 up there. You figured out a way to choose sides with the bat, and all right, and the last guy gets it. All right, safer out was adjudicated by the participants, and you either agree with it or you went home. We had to figure a way out how to do these things. Today, every kid involved in activity is under the auspices of an adult, and the adults are looked to solve all these problems that we had to solve for ourselves. And it carries over into school, because things happen in school and the parents come in and they want you to solve this family issue or these issue between families. They don't have the social skills that we had to develop to survive as kids.
How many innings do you play? They'll tell you it's time to go home.
That's right.
Who
that's
won?
right.
I don't know.
Hey, you know, and you'd play from 8 o'clock in the morning till
Yeah.
11. People go home for lunch, and you ran back. So you wanted to be able to get in the next game.
Yeah.
You know, and you hope like crazy that somebody had a beer party down there over the weekend, so you'd have the cardboard container from the beer can to put on for bases.
For several years, I don't remember, at least a couple, Jim Labatt had a basketball court in his backyard. His father had paved over the backyard, and it had I forget whether it was a half court or full court. I think it was a half court. And all the kids would shoot hoops there. Mm-hmm. But during Easter vacation, there would be the Labatt Invitational Tournament, the LIT, and it was a 2-on-2 tournament, and I forget how many dozens of teams signed up, and they had rankings and this, that, and the other thing, and
Yeah.
holy mackerel.
We used to on the upper part of Market, you used to go up to Hank Kelly's. He had a court
Yeah.
in his, and we'd play up there. And then for a while, when the Smealeys were over on Grand Avenue,
Right.
that were the houses in the back, it was a yard, and you'd have football games in there.
Oh, sure.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Many a touch football game I
Yeah.
played up there. Yeah.
And sometimes it was hard to distinguish whether it was touch or tackle football.
Well, yeah,
but
'cause, yeah.
that was all right. But you know,
JDO's
kids,
got to be the quarterback, of course.
it was his field, and his
That's
football.
right. That's right.
All right, okay, no problem. But you know, kids did the. You drive around the city now, you don't see kids playing in the driveways. Okay, basketball. You don't see them up on the Four Diamonds.
Except
in
down on
summertime.
Clinton Street.
Yeah.
But you know,
And that's-
you know,
I don't mind.
I don't mind it either. You know, I wanted to applaud those, and they had it hooked up so that when it was really hot in the summer, they had the hose hooked up to the basket, so they when they'd go in for a hoop, they'd cool off.
Well, a few years ago, there was a big to-do up on Pershing because they had the courts over there on Veterans Field, and some guy was forever complaining about the kids playing basketball up on Veterans Field there. Behind the
You don't
tennis
mean
courts.
Pershing, you mean one of those other presidents.
Yeah, well, the other one. I
Because
think,
Pershing's over on the other side. That's Pershing's over with Coolidge, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
one
So
of
it's
those.
one of the other presidents.
Yeah,
right.
you know, and
Hayes or
because the
Garfield.
kids were making a record, but they were doing something.
Right.
They were playing ball
Right.
someplace.
Right.
You know, so now next Friday is St. Patrick's Day, sort of almost. St. Patrick's Day is really Monday the 17th.
Yes,
But
it
the-
is. Yes, it is.
But it actually is 17, 16.
So you're not
it's
gonna be
14.
here?
I won't be here on the 14th because I have a work obligation. I have to take some training classes. But in the evening, if you venture west in the county, you go to
Where, like
Canajoharie.
Canajoharie, yeah.
Canajoharie, you go up to the former St. Peter and Paul Church. There's going to be an Irish concert taking place up there. There's going to be a whole lot of groups from the valley singing.
I forget, is that on the East Hill or the West Hill in Canajoharie?
It's on West Hill. Yeah, West Hill.
Okay.
And our local Stonehouse Piper will be performing up there. So if you've got nothing to do that Friday, you can go up there, and they got singers, they got fiddle players, they've got organists, a whole bunch. It's a great Irish program they have up there.
And that's what time?
That starts at 7 o'clock, and
Yeah.
it's free.
Free?
Free to the public. You know,
Well, I'm the public.
yeah, it's free. It's free. And if you tell me you know the Stonehouse Piper, you can get a seat up front. Though when he plays, you really probably want
Well,
to
you
be in
really
the
want
back.
to be back a little
Yeah,
bit, because
yeah.
I was kind of fairly close to the front for that thing down at the Century Club.
Yeah, yeah. But if Friday doesn't work for you, on St. Patrick's Day, the 17th, Monday night, at O'Toole's Restaurant in Albany, the Stonehouse Piper will also be playing.
It's not going to be
down
playing at the Irish American Club?
there. He didn't get an invite to go down there. to
Oh, well.
Irish American Club to play down there for St. Patrick's Day. But so if you're out and about, you want to hear some great St. Patrick's Day music, you can go to the church in Canjo, or you can go to the establishment
Okay.
and down there. But I won't be here next Friday.
Won't be here next Friday? So, maybe we'll do a show then, because I don't know. We'll see.
But we'll be there this Tuesday down to WCSS.
Tuesday,
1490.
WCSS1490.com.
Yeah, we'll be there for that.
That would be WCSS1490.com or 1490 on your dial AM if you're in the area. Have I plugged my book yet? No.
No.
Where do we find such men? Available at Amazon.com, at the Old Peddler's Wagon at the Five Corners, at the Book Hound on Main Street, at the Walter Elwood Museum, at the County Archives in Fonda.
And keep your eye out, because soon it might be a.
Could be a big major motion picture. You never know.
That's right. Could be.
Keep expecting. Which one of the Douglas boys was the producer? He should get a hold of this. If he's hanging around the Dad's house and say, "Hey, what's this book here?"
Yeah. Yeah, because it's.
All right.
Well, I told you wrecked my.
I know. I got so many projects I can't get underway. I'm trying to do the ebook of Where Do We Find Such Men? Trying to rewrite Honor Roll. Working on my Civil War novel, and I really do kind of want to do the
Screenplay.
Jack Blanchfield screenplay from my book.
I think we could.
They're all good projects. So much to do, so little time to do it.
But the time will be found.
Okay.
It's a sunshine future.
Wow. Well, I'm only 62 and a half, so what the heck, I got time.
Yeah, you do.
I hope. All right.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for today. I
think
think
we
we've
are.
covered a lot of ground here, solved a lot of world problems, and wait till people see this show. They're going to be amazed.
And what we didn't solve, we created.
That's true. That's true. And you know, we're probably on the KGB hit list right now. Well, we didn't really attack Putin.
No, we didn't attack him too much, but I think
We
I'm
just
on the
kind
list
of try to
anyway.
explain the history and where we are, and
How we got there.
Crimea River. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
I didn't come up with it, somebody else did.
Hey, there's no plagiarism.
Plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch. And we'll be back on Tuesday on the radio. We'll probably video it because all the best stuff happens when I'm not videoing. With more of the show with no name.